Glasses on for a minute. Good morning. Welcome to Coffee and Conversations in the Intimacy of Race Facebook group and also live on YouTube. So today I have a special guest. I have Asa Patterson is going to be joining us today. Now, Asa is a managing partners of Entrepreneur Success Training, LLC, and he's also an entrepreneur, a real estate expert, and a private lender with a wealth of knowledge and experience acquiring during his 21 years of building his own business and mentoring business owners across the country and abroad. So welcome, Asa. I'm really happy to have your perspective shared on Coffee and Conversation. So welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to our session.
Yeah, so, I asked Asa to be on because I know that I have been featuring a lot of female voices, which is kind of my jam. But, the perspective that a lot of us females, not only white females and not only white people, but Black females, don't often fully understand. We have we're affected by it deeply, but just how the experience for our men, our Black men growing up and creating successful life business in a white patriarchal society, what that feels like for them as well. So, one of the things I really wanted to start asking you is to share a little bit about, who you are, kind of where you grew up, what that situation is, so we can kind of get to know you a little bit better. Oops. We lost Asa. Hopefully he'll hop back in a second. This is live TV, folks. Let's see if we can get him back because I don't know what he was actually futzing around with there. Here he is. Let me let him back in.
Thank you.
Hey, everything okay technically?
I lost audio for a moment, so I'm back now.
You couldn't hear me?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, here we go again. Tell us a little bit about yourself, like who you are, what you do, where you kind of grew up, and we'll just start from there, okay?
All right. So where do you want me to start? Grew up on the South Side.
Start the day you were born, but just a little bit about, your background. I know you told me when we spoke before, you spent some time in the military and then you became a real estate entrepreneur, sort of kind of a similar education system that I went through to become a real estate investor as well.
Well, that's the path to success, right? You have to learn from those who know more than you do. But went to University of Illinois on a full track scholarship, grew up on the south side of Chicago. And my parents moved us to Hammond, Indiana, which is only about 30 minutes away from where I grew up. And when I entered into high school, because the neighborhood was getting kind of rough, and I was getting to a point where you would almost have to choose a gang affiliation just to be able to be in the neighborhood. So they moved us out of that. I ended up getting a scholarship to the University of Illinois running track. And I was enamored and intrigued by the Marine Corps, the mystique of the Marine Corps, the few, the proud, and they're the toughest branch, and I love a challenge. So I signed up to that challenge and went into the officer program in the Marine Corps. And I had always attended mixed schools. I was a part of a busing program from the south side to the east side of Chicago when I was in grammar school. The high school I went to was majority white. The neighborhood I lived in when we moved to Indiana was right next to Purdue Calumet, which was an all-white neighborhood. I didn't know that. So I had always operated very well in both environments, right? The African-American Black environment as well as the other environment. And the Marine Corps was very, very interesting because the level of racism was so strongly invisible, if that's something that can be said about it. So it was a good time. I learned a lot about myself and a lot about people. But as I was in the Marine Corps, I read a book that made me rethink what I was doing. And as a result of reading that book, I realized I was making about $5 an hour based on the amount of time I was in at work and the
Mm,
pay that I received. So in the Marine Corps, we worked. There was no, oh, it's 5 o'clock, time to go home. It was till the stuff was done.
mm.
So when I saw that and reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, it just opened a new world for me. And that's when I got into real estate investing and never looked back from that.
So I want to go back a little bit about your experience moving to an all-white neighborhood. I mean, your parents took you out of a situation that could have put you on a different path and a
Yes.
trajectory in life, and they made that decision. My parents did that for me as well. And I
Hmm.
remember when we moved into the neighborhood and bought our house, it was like all the white people were leaving. It was like there was this joke, there goes the neighborhood, right? You know, the
Right.
black family has moved in. Did you have any experiences like that?
So not in the neighborhood that we were in directly. Um, as they looked around in different neighborhoods in Northwest Indiana, and when my parents would show up with the realtor,
Mm,
then a lot of realtors that were showing the house, the listing agent would bring up comments that there is a committee that must approve all transactions. So we would need to take, if you decide to purchase, we have to go before the committee prior to you closing on the property. So, I was not aware of that until older, and my parents shared that with me. But that was something that they faced on a regular basis because there were very few Black families living in those areas.
what year was this?
85, 84, 85.
Wow. See, not that long ago, people.
Not
Not
at all.
that long ago. This is still a part of the fabric of America that,
Yeah.
depending upon where you live, you experience it stronger in some areas and not so strong in the other areas, but it's always in the underbelly. Mine was
Right.
the early 70s. And I remember really as soon as Black families started moving into that street, the other houses went up for sale because they were leaving. Like our
Yeah.
neighborhood is changing and we're leaving. And even I went to um, a Catholic grammar school in that
Okay.
neighborhood, and I was one of two. I mean, yeah, one of two Black girls. There were no Black guys at all, no
Wow.
Black boys. And of course, they made us, become best friends and sit together because we were both alike and we both had afros and all of the looks of being different. And, it literally felt like being a monkey in a zoo. You know,
Wow.
I, like have learned to be comfortable in that environment because I've been in that environment. And so it's not anything strange to me. So
Right.
tell us a little bit about your invisible racism experiences in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And I love the Marine Corps. I love the experience. I love what Marines do. So I'm not throwing stones at the Marine Corps, but there are certain underlying issues that are there that I don't know how they could be addressed. Um, so there's after you graduate from college, I actually went on to get my master's in education and then went to the military, which is totally backwards. Most people go to the military to pay for school,
Mhm.
um, but I did it the other way around. Uh, So you go to something called Officer Candidate School. That is boot camp for officers. It's a 10-week training where the Marine Corps is screening and evaluating the candidate. That's what we call candidates for their leadership potential. At any time, we're there voluntarily. So at any time, you can just raise your hand and say, yeah, I want to go home. And
Mhm.
they'll send you home, right? No problems, no questions asked. They'll send you home. And at any time, you could get a tap on your shoulder and say, hey, you don't possess the leadership that we're looking for in a Marine. So bye-bye.
Mhm.
So during this 10-week training, the attrition of Black candidates was over 60% for
Wow.
whatever reason. Now, there was a gentleman, two candidates had the same injury 8 weeks within the training. We only have 2 more weeks to go before we graduate. Once you graduate, you have the option to say, hey, I want to receive my commission. That's when you raise your hand and you're sworn in. And that's when, the military owns you. Or you can graduate officer candidate school and say, hey, it was a great experience. I'm not moving forward, and you go home. So 2 candidates, one black, one white, the exact same injury. The black candidate is sent home. The white candidate, which is unheard of, is allowed to limp around to finish the training. So just little things like that. My drill instructor pulled, this maybe week 6, pulled the remaining black candidates that were left, he was black, into his office, and really kind of gave us a pep talk, just to let us know that our days were numbered. And he looked at me, he's like, Patterson, I don't know what you did to, and he named the lieutenant who was our platoon commander. I don't know what you did to him, but he hates your guts. You better keep yourself together, right? He used some other choice words. And it was just amazing to see it and to feel it, but not be able to call anyone on it. So it was an environment that I use that as strength, because for me, it's like, how are you going to try to deny me something, dude? I'm way better than anything you can throw at me. So that kind of environment, I thrive on it, where other African-American males and females, they break apart and they shrink, and they allow that to do what it's designed to do, weed them out. But for me, I love it. Not just like, okay, now I know. Yes.
Well, I think that's why a lot of us can have that level of resilience to be successful in spite of, and use it as fuel to the fire because of, the incidents I experienced. I was the only one of 2 blacks in my graduating dental hygiene class, and there were very few black hygienists, and the one other black woman, was asked to leave for whatever reason. I thought it was financial, and I was trying to be this like activist and keep her in, but something wasn't happening. Can you hear me? Are you having?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yeah. You can't hear me?
So I'm gonna jump out and come right back in. I don't know what's going on, so I'll be right back.
Okay. Thank you guys, who's ever watching live or on the replay, for being patient with the technical difficulties that we're having on StreamYard today. So hopefully we'll have Asa back in the studio in a second.
Thank you for letting me back in.
Okay, this is our last hurrah. Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me? Can you hear me? And I can't hear you now. All right, so why don't we probably need to invite him back another time when we're not having some technical difficulties. But, I wanted to bring a Black man's perspective on the experience of resilience and overcoming, either overtly racist acts or hidden, like he says, invisible acts of racism. And so, Asa, do you have headsets?
I do. So what's happening is I'm attempting to get my computer on. It didn't like the StreamYard app. Okay. So it started running hot and shutting down. Okay. So I'm going to open my computer and see if we can play well on that. What happened is when a call comes in, I end the call, but you can hear me, but I can't hear you. So, and this is the resilience that we must have.
Do you have that do not disturb button on your phone?
So I don't know. No.
That's like a magic button that I discovered that prevents calls from coming in.
Oh, thank you. There it is. Yes. Hold on.
Have it?
Do not disturb. Done. Okay.
And let's see if that works.
So that's great. I didn't know how to do that. because I would put it on airplane mode and miss call.
You know, the old lady can teach you youngins a thing or two every now and
Hey,
then.
I'm always willing to learn. Great, thank
So,
you.
yeah, and that keeps calls from coming in, and then you can put it back on later. That's great if you're taking a nap.
Yes.
Yeah,
See,
for sure.
Marines don't know anything about naps.
Yeah, of course you don't. So let me ask you this. I'm gonna shift in the time that we have left together, um, about the experience you had. Like you and I actually went through the same training to learn about real estate and lending, even with our good friend George,
Yes.
and moving around. Like I'm in the California, in the San Francisco Bay Area, and you're in Illinois. And for me as a woman, I found a lot of people were automatically deferring to my husband, who is white, putting his name on the contracts first, when it was me who was finding the deals, negotiating the deals, acquiring the deals, doing the education, the brunt of the education. And so I found the sexism was really, really strong in our profession, our career path. What was your experience as a Black man in the path that you chose in real estate and lending?
So I position myself as the one who's not the decision maker. Man, I can't think of the gentleman's name. It was a Black owner of a bank. I read about him years ago when I was in the Marine Corps, and no one knew that he was the owner. So the assumption was that, just like with you, that he was a manager or an employee working for the owner. And I really liked that position because it allowed me to be in control, negotiate, and push the envelope further because they didn't know who they were talking to. Right. So I adopted that after I experienced a lot of things you experienced. Do you have the money? You have to have cash for this deal. Are you aware? When I was younger, are your parents going to be involved in this transaction? That kind of stuff. And again, I just sit back and laugh because this was after the Marine Corps. And I'm just like, wow, these guys are really clueless and they're really showing themselves. So I like to be in the position where the perception is that I'm not in control and they can really relax and they reveal who they really are, because I can then begin. Here's an example. I had a tenant I had to evict. This was in the beginning of my real estate career. This tenant came out of the house because they were supposed to be out Saturday afternoon. They weren't. So she comes out of the house and she's cussing me out, right? You don't have to do this, just going in on me. And again, I'm always thinking, and I was like, look, I pointed at that time, my wife was in the car and my brand new baby girl. I was like, look at that. That's my family in the car. I have to do this. My figurehead, and I'm just putting all my info out there now, is Mr. Tate, Sam Tate. And I was like, hey, Mr. Tate is the one that I'm working for, and I'm giving you an extra week, and if he comes into town, then I'm not going to be able to feed those two people in that car. So he's really a jerk. So just come on, give me a break. So me and her now, we're on the same side, and that just really helped me see the power of being invisible.
Can I ask you this? Do
Yeah.
you think you would have done the same thing if you were white?
Almost. Oh no, not at all. Because I'm Black. And again, I lent to that understanding that, hey, I'm not in charge here. I'm just working, right? But yes, if I would have been Caucasian, there would have been no issue, and she would have been out probably a week prior when she was supposed to be out.
Interesting. Do you feel that the strength of mind that you got by being in the military and the Marines has helped with your mindset to deal with the crap that you have to deal with based on your color?
Most definitely. most
Yeah.
definitely, because everything is based on color.
Hmm.
It is the great divider. Chicago is one of the uh, most strongest racially segregated, in my opinion, cities in the country. There are just certain areas that you don't move into. It's slowly changing, but not a lot. And the Marine Corps College, I went to the University of Illinois, just really helped me see that and um, become one of the different. You're black, but you're different, Asa. Hey, you're
You're
all
not
right.
black. You're acceptable. You're
Yes.
acceptable. My girlfriend and I used to tease each other and say we were easy on the eyes.
Right. Right.
We,
Yeah.
weren't the scary stereotype of a black person, or you don't sound black on the phone, and all of those things. And here's the thing: I've always laughed about that, and we're able to joke about that. Um, but something happened to me personally when I witnessed George Floyd's murder.
Mm,
It was a level of grief that I never experienced before. And I've lost people that were close to me, but it felt very ancestral and generational.
mm,
The grief that I was feeling like this is still happening, but now we've got cell phone cameras. Everything
yeah.
is recorded now. And it started making me think how many of these in our last 100 years we've missed. We don't
Right.
know about, we don't hear
Right.
about how often this happens. But another level of awareness awoke in me is that how my resiliency as a Black woman has protected white fragility. That means you lost me again, huh?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay.
I was talking to my daughter's right here. I'm trying to get her. I apologize. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. But what's come up for me is how my resiliency has protected white fragility.
Hmm.
Because similar to what you're saying, we've had to change and adapt ourselves so that we don't offend or scare or make
Mm,
white people uncomfortable.
right. Right.
Because our history, if we make white people uncomfortable, we could end up dead or hurt.
Right.
So
Right.
it's also a part of self-preservation. It's
Right.
deadly for Black men, especially, to make white people uncomfortable. So we had to be acceptable, articulate, you choose our words carefully so that they don't feel threatened or concerned or afraid in
Right.
any way, shape, or form. And so I know my perspective as a Black woman doing that. I'm now not not swallowing microaggressions, unconscious biases. I'm more apt to call them out now in a way that is educational.
Mm,
I know there's still a lot of ignorance to what is a microaggression or an unconscious bias. But I also have a very deeper compassion for our Black men and how emasculating some of the things that our Black men have had to endure and had to shapeshift so that they can rise.
that's a great word. Shapeshift.
I mean, you've got the discipline of the military, but are there times where you just like are exhausted from it?
So yeah, there are times and seeing what is happening in the world over and over. My heart goes out to the young Black kids that are being harassed by the cops who don't have the mindset to shake it off just to get by. You know, the super pro Black would like, dude, you selling out. And I'm like, no, I'm selling into my prosperity so I can reap what I'm sowing. So it's just really difficult. I went a period of time where I was selling life insurance to first responders. And got into some really great conversations and educational situations with a group of white officers that were fed up with what they were experiencing as an officer. The one officer said, "Hey, I'm getting out. I'm going undercover because I can't stand to have the uniform on because of the public perception of the police."
Mhm.
You know, I get it from Black people and white people because there's some white people that believe a lot of the cops are racist and you know, just singling out Black people. So he was like, you know, it's too much for me. I got to get out of it. So we were laughing about it. And I said, isn't that interesting that you can get out of it, right? You can choose not to put your uniform on, but my uniform doesn't come off.
No, it doesn't.
And silence, right? And another guy who hadn't talked much, he was like, dude, I never, he said, I'm glad we're having this conversation because, you know, I never thought like that. You know, so it's a lot of key moments where white people or non-Blacks just don't know because they just don't know, you know. And I was just really glad to have that conversation with those officers because they're living in fear also. You know, a lot of them never met a Black man outside of a traffic stop or what they see on TV or the gangster, whatever movie that they watch. So it's an education that needs to go on across the board because they really don't know. And they're afraid based on what they've heard from their superior officers when you're dealing with Black traffic stops. So it's really interesting that you're having this forum that people can come to really learn that, hey, we really are no different. It's just the perceptions that have led to the difference. And, you know, if I think I'm going to move to New York and a borough that I'm moving to in New York is full of bad people and, you know, people are rude and nasty and I got to protect myself, that's what I'm going to experience.
Yeah.
So if we can change some of that, then that would be a step in a better direction.
So appreciate your words and coming on here and showing people what you've had to do to make it for
Mm.
yourself, to make it for your families, to make it out alive. And as a Black man, like you said, you can't take that uniform off, and there's still is always the possibility that there'll be a misunderstanding.
Almost definitely.
Yeah, yeah. Have you had
So,
any experiences like that that you can share? On a close.
so there was a time I was driving on a suspended license and I didn't know.
Mm,
And I was in an area where I was pulled over that the police are the perception is that they target Black motorists in the area. So I was pulled over. I wasn't speeding. I didn't make an illegal lane change. You know, I was just driving while Black. So come to find out that my license is suspended. So I'm like, oh, here we go. And you know,
so, were you intentionally suspended or just expired?
it was suspended for I don't even recall a ticket that I had years
Oh,
ago
okay.
where I didn't show in court, but I didn't know about it.
Mhm.
So the officer, and I'm telling this story because police officers are in their mind in a position of authority, a position of leadership, and you must submit to what I'm telling you. That's
Mhm.
the mindset of a police officer. I don't care what you're thinking. I'm the officer. I'm in charge. And if you don't submit to what I'm telling you, then I have the ability to force you to do what I'm telling you to do.
Mhm.
So young Black youth don't understand that, in my opinion, and they talk too much.
Mhm.
There's no time that traffic stop is not the time for you to have a discussion and negotiate anything with that officer because he doesn't want to hear it. You're just going to comply. So, you know, I'm in the back of the squad car having a conversation with him, and I'm laughing and joking, and he didn't break. I mean, he was serious, and they ended up taking me in, impounding the car. They released me as soon as I got there. I had to pay a fine to get the vehicle out, but when he got me out of the car, you know, he was like, "I need you to stand right here." And the tone in his voice and where he was pointing, I understood that he wasn't playing. There was no um, non-compliance in that situation. then he was like, I need you to move over here and stand right there. So if I wasn't mature, I would have not moved to where he instructed me to move. And I just feel that if you listen and do what you're told, most of the time you can de-escalate the situation. But you see a lot of these videos and stuff going on that it's escalated because, in my opinion, people talk too much.
Egos.
Yeah, you want to talk and negotiate, you'll have your day in court. Right now, it's time to get in and out of this situation as safely as possible so that you can go home to your family. So, you see all these videos, well, why do I have to get out of the car? What am I doing? I'm videotaping you. Don't touch me.
It's funny. I've been watching a lot of movies, that talk about a different era, 50s, 60s, and 70s, where, racist white cops pull you over for driving while black. And, this is what I hear in watching those movies and seeing some of the stuff that gets videotaped and shared on social media is that you don't have rights driving while black. So you can't even say it's my constitutional right to know why you were pulling me over,
Right.
why you were asking me to step out of the car. That's what the perception I get. Like, I don't know Miranda rights or what they are. My dad was a cop for 20, 30 years. I grew up with a police officer in uniform and the gun and the badge, and then undercover, and then in IAD, which is internal affairs. And so my dad actually was with Dr. Martin Luther King a few days before his assassination. So I've got that legacy in my family. But I also know that when you're wearing the uniform that we wear in this color, we have no rights when we are pulled over. And the feeling of not having the rights because of our color is what's hard for a lot of people to accept. They do let emotions and ego stand in the way of their safety.
Yes, yes.
And it's easier for some more emotional and mature people to deal with it. But I know, even what's his name? Henry Louis Gates Jr. had the same thing happen to him. His brother was actually my professor in college, in dental school.
Okay.
I've seen videos of policemen coming into your house, for example, as if you were an intruder in your own house.
Right.
Don't have rights as a black person, as a white person does, when it comes to dealing with the law. That's hard to swallow. But for people that are resilient and can play the game to stay alive, it's not playing to win, it's really playing to stay alive, and it's survival. I feel this, our community wants to play to thrive because we've been playing to survive for 400 years. And it's now our opportunity to thrive in the nation that we grew up in, and in the nation that, a lot of us have fought for. A lot of us have built in our history and generations. And, I appreciate you sharing your perspective as a Black man, but I also personally am becoming more aware of how a lot of us don't have the strength, the mental strength, to be discounted so many times and like we don't have rights. And that's where the danger comes in, of really having that mental strength and wanting to thrive at the same time.
And I believe that we can't meet force with force. And in my opinion, the way to thrive is to thrive financially. I have some very different views than my peers when it comes to equality and how you get that equality. But no, not but. And I feel that if I'm making money, then that is the beginning of a equalizer that will allow me to then position things differently. Politics, I don't recall what president it was, but he was talking about his alliance to the Black Caucus and other Black leaders and how they were used to get him elected, right? And he had commented on the fact that he was surprised that there was nothing that they came back to for him to reciprocate. You follow what I mean? So it just has to be a different mindset. It has to be chess, and a lot of times we're playing checkers when the game is chess, and you have to think 2-3 moves ahead. And when you do that, then, and if your finances are right, then you can start doing things politically with lobbyists and different things, and then your agenda can be moved forward. Marching and protesting and doing all that, that's not going to get any agenda moved forward, in my opinion. It takes chess and 3 or 4 thoughts ahead.
There is a both and, but the protests and the riots are the way, it's the language of the people who are typically not heard and don't have the financial wherewithal to get their voices heard. So there is power in thriving and surviving and being in a financial position to make a difference. And I just hope a lot of our Black leaders step up a little bit more. I know for me, it was a wake up call for me to do something. I didn't know what I could make a difference. This is part of it. But, what I can do is different from what you can do, and so on and so forth. And I think we all get to take that responsibility and do something. So thank you for contributing to the conversation.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And this was an awesome conversation. I look forward to more conversations, but I believe this is just the beginning, and it's going to allow more conversation to open into other powerful things. So I thank you for this.
Oh, of course, my pleasure. And guys, next week we'll be having Coffee and Conversations again in the Intimacy of Race Facebook group and on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, evamedelec.com/YouTube. And I'll see you all next week. Bye.
All right.